Strange Brew Podcast, Season 1, Episode 313, a Halloween Day episode.
Halloween. It's heist time.
Heist time. One of my favorite TV shows with Halloween episodes built in, the Brooklyn Nine-Nine heist episodes. They get you going. How's the rest of that intro play out?
Thought you could get a head start on heist prep? Good luck. I'm already dressed.
Well, I'm also dressed. And I made breakfast. Wait, where are my eggs?
In my belly. Yeah! Now get a move on. It's heist time.
It's such a great sequence of episodes from Brooklyn Nine-Nine in their run. Yeah, Halloween Friday. Welcome in. We've got Packers and Panthers this weekend. I've got a couple of pieces of old school audio I want to play. I think we teased that on Monday this week. I always think of when it's Halloween and we're talking Packers, I think of the old Monday Night Football intro, 1994, Packers and Bears, and they got Nitschke and Butkus on the intro and all that good stuff. We're going to play a little bit of that. I'm also going to play you, which I think we played at one point a year or two ago, I think in 2023 when it looked like Jordan Love and this whole team was going to be really bad. Remember that? Remember the first half of 2023, and then instead of getting hyped about the game, we would always give you whatever opponent the Packers had coming up that weekend. We would do a fun memory of a game against that team. I think we did one against the Panthers that year, but I'm going to play you the audio of the first time these two teams met up, Packers and Panthers. Sunday, I think, is their 16th matchup all time or 17th matchup all time. The first time they ever played against each other, the 1996 NFC Championship game. We're going to play you some of the intro from that on Fox Sports. We'll talk about the game itself. Quay Walker was a late addition to the injury report. I don't think that's nothing. He's played really well this year. It's a calf injury. I don't know that not having Quay out there on Sunday means you're going to lose to the Panthers, but it probably makes things a little more difficult. Panthers come in 4-4. They're not like a 1-7 team here. It seems like that seems to be the storyline heading into the weekend, that this is a really, really bad team. They're 4-4. It's not terrible. They're a game out of a playoff spot. And that's sort of the narrative. Are the Packers going to overlook this team when you're coming off of the win against Rodgers and the Steelers, and you've got the defending champion Eagles coming in Monday night the next week? You have to be careful to avoid the Admiral Akbar it's a trap game against the Panthers this weekend. We're going to talk about the Bucs. Their hot start continued last night. What a week for Ryan Rollins. The Ryan Rollins glow up, everybody. 25 points in the win on Tuesday, 32 points, and outplaying Steph Curry in a win against the Warriors last night with no Giannis. Giannis was a late scratch. The Bucs still won by 10 last night, and the Warriors were fully healthy and playing everybody last night. And 23-year-old Ryan Rollins is the story this week. We'll see if he can continue his hot play heading into the weekend. They've got the Kings at Fiserv Forum on Saturday. We're going to talk about the World Series. I know it's several days now in the rearview mirror, but was it Monday night or Tuesday night? We had the epic 18-inning game between the Blue Jays and Dodgers that lasted almost 7 hours. And the Dodgers took a 2-1 series lead. And in my mind, how are the Blue Jays ever going to bounce back from losing in that fashion? They go out and win games 4 and 5 handily. And they are a win away tonight from their first World Series championship since 1993. We'll talk about that too and make some picks against the spread for college football in the NFL. Let's go.
On the ground, a chance here. Durham to Hardy to first. It's home! Yes! The Brewers win! Yes!
Here comes Melvin to the 25, to the 20, Gordon 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Wisconsin! Record-breaking run!
Morgan a smash up the middle, base hit to center. Here comes Gomez around third. A throw and the Brewers win!
Here's the snap. He looks, he throws, it's and there is your Super Bowl dagger.
Booker the drive, gets inside, leans in, knocked away and stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has to foul on a pinnacle ball, throws it down. Swinging fly ball in the right center. Broxton is there, and they're the champions. They have done it. It's been a 50-year journey. Wisconsin, we've got a room at the top of the world tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions.
Yeah, welcome in. Halloween Friday here. Let's hit a little bit of the John Carpenter Halloween theme as well. Get you in the Halloween mood. So this is what we did. Remember on Monday we talked about we were doing Halloween movie trivia for the 17th straight year on the B93 Morning Show the week heading into Halloween. We had Ghostbusters. We talked about that on Monday. We did Friday the 13th on Tuesday. We did It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, a little lighter fare on Wednesday. We did Hocus Pocus, of course. One of the most basic white girl things I do, outside of pumpkin spice lattes, is watch Hocus Pocus every year. And then you have to do this one. When Halloween falls on a Friday, this theme song, this still bangs. You just get that creepy vibe. So the question this morning was, how many movies are in the Halloween franchise? I think my favorite fun fact from the Halloween movie franchise is the fact that the mask that Michael Myers wears is actually an old Captain Kirk Star Trek mask. Like, look that up. That's a fact. That was an old prop from the Star Trek set in the 60s, and that's what they used for the original Michael Myers mask. And ever since I read that, I can't help, every time I watch this movie, I can't help but see Captain Kirk as Michael Myers. But the question was, how many movies are in the film franchise? And your options were 11, 12, or 13. It's 13 movies. I guess they all make money, though. They just came out with one 2 years ago or 3 years ago in 2022, right before Halloween. It was called Halloween Ends. But all of these, even going back to the one 2 years before that and in 2018, anytime they come out with these, there's a hunger, there's an appetite, because it's the highest box office number for that week or two leading into Halloween. So if there's money to be made, if there's free money out there, may as well take it. I couldn't believe, though, 13 total movies. I think I've seen the original Halloween, I've seen in its entirety many times. I might watch a part of it today. I'm sure it's on AMC or one of the TV stations going to have it on today. So I've seen that one a lot. I've seen Halloween 2 all the way through several times, and I don't think it's a terrible sequel. There are some really unintentionally funny things that happen in Halloween 2. It's actually kind of a funny movie. And I've seen that one. I think those are the only 2 of the 13 that I've seen. Then you have Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I think I've seen parts of that. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. Halloween H2O, I sort of remember from the late 90s. It's possible I saw that. Maybe I saw that in the theater. And then you had Halloween Resurrection, and then you had the remakes, the Rob Zombie remakes. Halloween 11 was actually a buddy cop comedy, where Mike Myers goes into the police academy and becomes a cop. They crash weddings. Halloween 12 is a romantic comedy. I guess 13 movies all told before Halloween Ends came out in 2022. And even though that feels like a definitive conclusion with the title of the movie and how many of them have come out, at some point in the next 2 or 3 years, oh, he's back. He's alive again. Can you believe it? And we're going to make $80 million. Laugh our way to the bank. But it is a Halloween Friday. Welcome in here this morning. So I want to start right away with this then. If we're talking Halloween, we may as well segue into this. Before we talk about Packers, Panthers, like I said in the teaser, when I think of Packer football on Halloween, I always think of the 1994 Monday Nighter that was in the driving monsoon at Soldier Field. And in a game where in standard def, you couldn't even see, you literally could not see on TV where the ball was. You couldn't see half the players because all the cameras had raindrops on them. And we're not talking about like a high def time frame we were living in. That's the first thing I think of, though, when I think of Halloween and Packer football. And this is one of the epic Monday Night Football intros. We're going to talk when we get to the Bucs, because the Bucs made their return to NBA on NBC, national TV, on Tuesday night. And since the NBA is back on NBC, the old school intros, those 90-second, 2-minute-long intros before every game, those are back too. And Bob Costas is narrating them. But this is how things used to open all the time in the 90s, not just with the NBA or the NFL. Every sporting event, you had that intro 90-second, 2-minute package to get you hyped up, to make the game feel bigger than maybe it was. This is one of my favorite pieces of Monday Night Football intro audio.
I'm ready, Wack.
That's when you take the ball.
Hey, age before beauty.
Wait a second. This is Green Bay at Chicago, the black and blue division. Blood and guts on Halloween night.
There's only one guy to kick off this game.
Thanks for the handoff, Joe.
A crypt keeper.
But I think a scream pass would be better. Hey, team, are you ready for some football?
This is the best.
They are the monsters of the Midway.
Gifford.
The Chicago Bears.
The Oregon music, it's so good.
the north, the Green Bay Packers. For years, they have been at each other's throats, looking to extract that pound of flesh. He stands 6'5", the Packers' predator, a quarterback carnivore, defensive end, Reggie White.
The Packers and the Bears are the oldest rivalry in the league. You're going to see some good football. It's a division game. It's a big game on both sides. So you know there's going to be a lot of head knocking and head cracking.
Halloween is upon us. Your presence is required. Tonight, for ABC's Monday Night Football.
It's just the best. They had all the production folks, the poor production interns were all dressed up as werewolves and witches and zombies, wandering around with the helmets, smashing the helmets together. This used to be a proper country with proper TV stations and proper intros to the sporting events. I think of that game anytime we get to Halloween. Monday Night Football in the driving rain. Favre was running into the end zone in that game like a 35-yard touchdown run. You never saw Favre do that. And they did win the game. And that night they had the retros on, and they're wearing the retros this year as well, this weekend. It just must be this time of year, this weekend every year. But they had, I think, the 1930s retros on that night that were gross. They looked like we talked about the Steelers retros, the early 30s retros throwbacks they were wearing on Sunday Night Football. That was that night. Monday Night Football, they had the gold shoulders and the gold collar, but then white with the navy letter and the puke yellow helmet. They were wearing those in the slop at Soldier Field. As mutter was a mutter. In the sloppy conditions at Soldier Field that night, but the Packers got a big win. I just always think of that intro when we talk about Packer football and get to around Halloween. All right, and yeah, they have the 1923 retros are going to be on this weekend, and they're going to have those fake leather helmets or the leather matte finishing on the helmets. I did laugh. The Packers social media team understood the assignment as it related to Romeo Doubs and the Guardian cap. Everybody's question when they announced they're wearing the 23 throwbacks this weekend was, what are those fake leather helmets going to look like with the Guardian cap that Romeo Doubs wears? And look, Romeo Doubs has had, I think, 2 or 3 concussions already in his career. We know a lot more about concussions than we did when I was playing that intro from that 1994 season where if you got your head rattled, they give you some smelling salts and put you back on the field. In a very good way, we know a lot more. We are much more protective of people's brains and heads and CTE. So it's a good thing he's wearing. I know people like to poke fun at it. I poke fun at it a little bit too. It does look a little ridiculous. Maybe over the years there will be a sleeker design on the Guardian helmet than what it is now, where you don't look like Lord Helmet from Spaceballs. But it's good that he's protecting his health. And Savion Williams wears one too. It should be good. We shouldn't make fun of it. It's good that they're wearing that and protecting their future health. But it does cross your mind with how kind of nuts they look just as is. How is that going to look with the retro helmet? And the first picture they put up when they did basically team photo day over again with the retro jerseys, with the throwback jerseys, the first picture the Packers social media team put up on Twitter and Facebook was a picture of Romeo Doubs with the Guardian version of the leather helmet. It looks about as good as it can look. So Packers and Panthers this weekend. The big question is, and we talked about it in the tease, I guess the one thing maybe you're concerned about is, are the Packers going to be caught overlooking this Panther team? Now, the Panthers are not bad. They're coming off of a 40-9 home loss, but it's to the Bills. That is a title-contending team. And heading into that game, the Panthers are 4-3, so they're 4-4 now. They're a game out of a playoff spot. Do I think they're going to be a playoff team in the NFC? No. Do I think they're going to win even 7 or 8 games this year? Probably not. I think at the end of the day, even at 4-4 right now, they're probably still a 6 or 7 at most win team, probably 6-win team. This is not a playoff caliber team. Maybe they're heading in that direction, but that's not where they're at right now. And the Packers sitting at 5-1-1, the number 1 seed in the NFC. They have designs on a 12 or 13 win year and maybe getting a 1 seed and a long run into the playoffs and hopefully a Super Bowl run. At home, this should be a game where you handle your business. And the Packers are 13-point favorites now. It opened at 11. It got to 11.5 middle of the week, and now it's sitting at 13. So that's the Vegas interpretation of this game. But there is a little bit of a concern maybe when you're coming off of an emotional win, Sunday Night Football, matching up with Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers on the road. You get the win there. Next week, you've got the Eagles game. So rematch of the playoff matchup. They're the reigning Super Bowl champs. It's Monday Night Football with hopefully a cool intro. So you've got those two games, and in the middle, you've got this noon kickoff and non-traditional, or one that doesn't have the rich history necessarily of a Packers-Eagles or a Packers-Steelers. Packers-Panthers, even though we're going to play the 96 NFC title game audio here in a second too. There is that in the history books. But you just don't have a lot of sexiness on this matchup, a lot of buildup, a lot of subplots, a lot of juicy narratives like we had heading into last weekend. So could you get caught overlooking this team? I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not saying it can't be a close game, but I don't think the reason it would be a close game is because the Packers are overlooking this team. Matt LaFleur talked about it, and Jordan Love talked about it middle of the week. They have been hammering home all week long. We are not at a stage right now in our franchise with our roster where we can overlook people. And maybe that's not necessarily true, but you want to make sure you're delivering that message to the players so they're not overlooking anyone. But I think that's maybe the biggest concern we have heading into this weekend, that could you have a lapse in attention heading into a game against a 4-4 team, a noon kickoff. There aren't many noon kickoffs on the schedule. A sleepy kickoff coming off of a fallback. It's fallback weekend, too. Extra hour of bar time. When's the last time I would have done that? And I remember when I was in Point, the first weekend I was in Point, or I should say the third year that I was in Point when I turned 21, because you have to be 21 to legally drink an alcoholic beverage. The third year when I was in Stevens Point, the first year when I was in Stevens Point, I will never forget the flashbulb moment of being at the bar, and it's 1 o'clock, 1:15, fallback weekend, and it dawns on me, wait a minute. We fall back at 2 o'clock. So bar closes 2 o'clock, but at 2 o'clock, we're going back to 1 o'clock. Do we get an extra hour of bar time? And the answer was we did. And I remember the eruptions. You almost counted down like it was New Year's Eve. I remember the eruptions at the bars we were at when we would get to bar close, then they'd have to roll the clock all the way back to 1 o'clock. I'm sure the bartenders loved it too. I'm sure the college bartenders, I guess maybe they get extra tips. But at that time, I mean, what does that even mean? From college kids buying dollar point specials, how many tips are you getting there? Oh, good, I get to make an extra 80 cents and I get to lose my mind for an hour. And that's the worst time to deal with customers, too, because by 1 o'clock, nobody's in the right frame of mind. And then you tack another hour onto that. Yeah, I'm sure bartenders loved that. Loved it. For the extra $11 they made in tips that night. But I remember when that dawned on me, like, oh my God, we get an extra hour of bar time. And there was a period in my life where I looked forward to that on fallback weekend. I can't even tell you the last time I was at a bar when the lights turned on at the end. I think it startled me. It might have been 7 or 8 years ago. I think my wife and I were out with some friends, and it just kind of carried on late into the evening, which normally does not happen anymore. And I remember the lights getting turned on, and it legitimately, like, what's happening? Are we in trouble? What's going on? Is there danger? Like, no, we're just shutting down for the night. Oh, I haven't seen this time period in a long, long time. So you've got a noon kickoff coming off of a fallback weekend. Are you in jeopardy of maybe overlooking this team? I just don't think that's going to be the case. And while this is a young team, they are still one of the youngest teams. I think they still are the youngest roster in the NFL somehow for like 2 or 3 years running. A lot of these guys have been starting and playing heavily since 2023. And yet when you have that 2 or 3 years of NFL experience, even if you're only 24, 25 years old, when you've been playing at that level for a couple of years, I just don't think you're going to overlook a team. I think at that point in your NFL career, you recognize that this is an any given Sunday league, that anything can happen any weekend. That has happened to the Packers, not necessarily because they were overlooking somebody, but we've seen them lose in the last few years, teams they probably shouldn't lose to. And those players have that experience in the back of their brains too. I just don't see that being a problem this weekend. Now, I'm not saying this can't be a close game. Maybe you turn the ball over a time or two, and that's not in the game script, obviously. And maybe Bryce Young, he's coming back. Maybe he has a good game against the Packers, and they get things rolling. I'm not saying this cannot be a close game. I'm not saying the Packers are going to do the cha-cha to covering 13 points here. But if it is a tighter game, I don't think it will be because they overlooked him. Injury situation heading into the weekend. You've got no Dontavian Wicks. Doesn't sound like he's going to play. Does not sound like Lucas Van Ness is going to play. Kicking. Brandon McManus, I believe, is going to be the kicker on Sunday. He was on his regular schedule, which I guess he was not last week. So he regularly kicks on Wednesday and Thursday at practice. He did not do that last week. So maybe that factored into the situation early on Sunday, too, where you're coming off the quad injury. You missed the last 2 weeks. You weren't on your regular kicking schedule during the week. Terrible turf in Pittsburgh. I mean, I guess we can make a laundry list of excuses for Brandon McManus. But maybe that played a role in what happened on Sunday, too, with the 2 missed kicks early. But he was on his regular schedule Wednesday, Thursday. They asked Matt LaFleur about his health on Thursday during his press conference. Matt LaFleur gave a very Mike Ditka answer to the question about McManus, where they said, hey, Brandon kicked on Wednesday, kicked on Thursday. How's he feeling? And LaFleur, with kind of a grin, said, I don't talk to kickers. That's a very old school Ditka kind of answer. I don't talk to kickers. He said, no, it looked like he felt good and the kicks looked good, so he's going to be the guy. Now, they have not cut Lucas Havlicek yet. We talked about that on Monday. And I think maybe the Packers are hedging a little bit here, not just on McManus' health, but also on, you never know with a kicker. It's one of those fickle positions where you can be rolling, and year after year, you have 85%, 90% accuracy, and then all of a sudden it just kind of falls through. You never know. McManus came last year. He stabilized the position for the first time in 2 years. He was 20 for 21 last year. He had been okay up until Sunday this year. He had a couple of misses, but both of those were blocks. I put that more on Rich Bisaccia and the blocking unit than I do on McManus. Maybe one of the kicks was a little low, but that's not as much on McManus as it is on the protection scheme. But he had been pretty good leading into Sunday. Misses the 57-yarder. Like I said, I think that's in his range, but bad quad, bad field conditions. And the 44-yarder is a more inexcusable miss before the first half ended on Sunday. And it's a situation, too, where you got up the field in 15, 20 seconds. You want to capitalize on that drive, and they just couldn't do it. And he made his 2 chip shots. He made all his extra points, so he had 7 kick attempts on Sunday. He made 5 of them. But they're going to give him a chance. But Lucas Havlicek is still on this roster. And like I said, you don't know. Maybe McManus is not fully healthy, or even though he was good last year and he had been good this year until the injury, you just don't know. Even though you gave him the 3-year, $15 million contract, you just don't know when all of a sudden a kicker is going to lose it. So do you want to put a guy who is 10 for 10 on kicks out on waivers on the practice squad where somebody can snatch him up? Right now, the answer seems to be the Packers don't want to do that. We'll see if that changes. That could change today. That could change Saturday. The 53-man roster, those spots are valuable to be on the active 53-man on Sunday. And teams don't generally carry 2 kickers because they want to use that roster spot for somebody else they may need in the game on Sunday. We'll see if maybe Havlicek or something changes there either today or tomorrow. But as of right now, it feels like McManus will be doing the kicking. He'll have a chance for some redemption on Sunday. And Havlicek right now is still on the roster. So maybe the Packers are just saying, let's just wait. If we don't need that roster spot right now, let's just wait. Make sure McManus is healthy. Make sure maybe he isn't just randomly going to be in a rut here. Why put Havlicek in a spot where he's going to get taken by somebody else when we're not entirely sure what the situation is right now with McManus? But McManus does feel like he is going to be the kicker out there on Sunday. That seemed to be what Matt LaFleur was hinting at during his Thursday press conference as well. The other little bit of injury news, Quay Walker on the injury report did not practice Thursday with a calf injury. To me, that's not nothing. I think they can win this game without Quay Walker, but he's a big part of that front seven. Micah Parsons was named NFC Defensive Player of the Month, rightfully so, for all the quarterback pressures and hits and the 6.5 sacks. And you've got Rashawn Gary having a great year opposite Parsons. That is a Parsons ripple effect to me. Not that Gary's not a good player, but he's seeing a lot more action now because of the attention Parsons is generating. But in addition to that, Quay Walker's also been thriving on that, where all eyes are on Micah Parsons. So Walker as a roaming middle linebacker, he's the signal caller out there. He's been their leading tackler the last couple of years. He's their leading tackler this year. He's been adding some sacks, and it just feels like he's been more of a menace defensively this year. Not having him out there would be a big deal. I would think McDuffie then would take over the signal calling duties, and he's fine. I think, as we mentioned when they signed him in the offseason, he had a solid year last year, McDuffie, as a backup linebacker and as a guy who filled in when guys went down with injury. He does kind of remind me of A.J. Hawk in some ways, or who was the other guy that racked up a ton of tackles but wasn't really a game wrecker at middle linebacker? Blake Martinez. Blake Martinez and A.J. Hawk are very similar to me. I'd say Hawk maybe a notch above Martinez in terms of overall play. But those are guys who are going to get a lot of tackles. Sometimes they're going to be 5 or 6 yards down the field, but they'll get a lot of tackles. That's sort of what McDuffie is. So I don't think they would lose the game if Quay Walker can't be out there on Sunday, but that would be a pretty big loss given how well he's played, and he is the captain of that defense right now. That was another wrinkle that was thrown out there on Thursday when the injury reports came out. Otherwise, offensively, you feel pretty good outside of Wicks being out. Hope to get the running game going on Sunday. Get Josh Jacobs a little bit more involved, get him rolling in the right direction. You've got Watson, you've got Tucker Kraft, who easily could have been NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Jordan Love was NFC Offensive Player of the Week this week, despite our friend Greg on Facebook on the Green and Gold Fan Zone You know what he said? He did respond. We talked about that on the Monday podcast about how I was going back and forth with that guy on the Green and Gold Fan Zone Facebook page. And he told me, you got to learn ball. You got to learn the game if you're going to understand why Jordan Love is not a good quarterback. And then remember I posted Sunday night the numbers that Love put up, and I said, is that good, Greg? Hey, coach, is that good? You know what he said? I had to tip my cap. You know what he said finally the next day? He said, Jordan did exactly what I said he needed to do and had one of the best games of his career. So Greg kind of took credit for his post and his assessment of Jordan before the game Sunday. Then Jordan goes out there and has a great game. And Greg said, hey, he did exactly what I said he needed to do. He should have been doing that the whole time. Congrats to me, Greg. Thanks, Coach Greg. So Jordan Love was the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. And it could have been Tucker Kraft. But you feel, other than Dontavian Wicks, you feel fairly healthy. Offensive line is fairly healthy. Zach Tom has practiced this week, so he should be out there on Sunday. Packers are 13-point favorites. They were 11.5-point favorites, but 13-point favorites heading into the weekend. But those are kind of the big storylines to me. You don't want to overlook a team. You would like Brandon McManus to not be Brandon McAnus. And Quay Walker was a big one added to the injury report on Thursday. This feels like a game they should handle, get to 6-1-1, and then you get set for the big primetime matchup with the Eagles on Monday Night Football. Now, before we move on, I'm going to play you 80 seconds of audio here. This is the Packer-Panther 1996, calendar year 97, NFC Championship game. The beginning part of this is the open to the pregame show, where they're outside of Lambeau Field and they're going around the tailgate, and people have the George Weber or the Weber grills going. George Weber. I got it combined. I conflated George Webb's and Weber grills in my brain. They had the Weber grills out with all the brats. I loved all those intros on Fox back in the day where they'd take a lap around the parking lot and all the people in their crazy Packer attire, all the food they were eating. And they have that as the first 30 seconds. Then you get the dramatic Pat Summerall intro to the NFC Championship game that year. Packers and Panthers, first meeting between these two teams in their history.
It's been nearly 30 years since the sun shone over Green Bay for a championship game, but this year's Packers have signaled the dawn of a new era. The Packer faithful have been here 3 hours before, and yes, the artists have found all kinds of canvases to perform their handiwork on. Yep, the faithful, they know their hometown team well, including, yes, the brats.
Got brats, beer bats, crock pots, cheeseheads.
And folks who helped to establish this
Paul Horning walking with like a celebrity.
Horning, they're all here to cheer on the modern version of the Green Bay Packers.
Paul Horning's the girl he's with has a mink coat on.
A city brought to life by the energy of a magnificent Packer tradition. A tradition with legends as big as any in pro football. But today's Green Bay Packers seek to create a legacy of their own. And in 1996, expectations ran high, and the Packers delivered. Last week, Green Bay continued its championship drive with a convincing win against the 49ers. And today, 30 years since their first Super Bowl, they are determined to return once again. 2 years ago, the National Football League welcomed the city of Charlotte. Up until last week, the upstart Carolina Panthers were the NFL's best-kept secret. But after a monumental performance against the defending world champions, they're a secret no longer. And suddenly, in only their second season, they seek to gain the ultimate respect. A trip to Super Bowl 31.
I mean, just goosebump city. I know we've probably talked about this on the podcast. I know we've talked about it on the air. I just remember that day so vividly. Ice cold day, but the sun was shining, blue sky, 2 o'clock kickoff. They had the first kickoff. They win, and then for the Sheboygan listeners on this podcast, if you're my age or a little older, or even a little younger, my grandma, my mom's side, we went to Clemmy's Wagon Wheel that night and celebrated, and we watched I think it was Broncos-Patriots in the AFC Championship game. That was on the big screen TV, which was one of those giant 18-ton big screen TVs back in the day at a bar. And we went there and had a nice dinner and a salad bar, and people are drinking their grasshopper dessert drinks, and it was just a great time. That's one of those days, if you gave me a short list of days I could go back and relive, that would be on the short list of a day that I would go back and relive. But that intro just gives me goosebumps every time. Packers-Panthers this Sunday, a good old-fashioned noon kickoff at Lambeau Field. Weather looks like it's going to be pretty good, too. Mid-50s and sunshine. It'll be dark just about by the time the game gets over, which is always a bummer, that first Sunday after daylight savings time. But it should be a nice day at Lambeau Field if you're going up and enjoying the game. Packers and Panthers this weekend. So let's just jump into the Bucks then, because I have more intros. I have more intro packages I want to play you. What a week for the Bucks. We talked about on Monday, off to a 2-1 start, beat the Wizards, beat the Raptors on the road, played the Cavaliers, a team that is expected to be a 1 or a 2 seed in the Eastern Conference if they're healthy. They were the 1 seed last year. You played them tight all the way through the fourth quarter without Kyle Kuzma, Cole Anthony, or Kevin Porter Jr. So we said on Monday, we're 3 games in. I get it, but I'm feeling pretty good about where they're at through 3 games. I'm feeling pretty good as somebody that has a significant amount of entertainment points on the over on 42.5 wins on the year at 2-1. So Tuesday they played the Knicks. They made their return to the NBA on NBC on Tuesday night. And we got a classic Bob Costas NBA on NBC intro. I wrote a blog about this the following day, so Wednesday morning. It is astonishing how the NBC has not had the NBA since 2002. First Bucks game on NBC since 2002. And I know we remember it fondly, and when they announced they were going back, all of the 90s kids and the 80s kids that grew up on games on NBC were all super excited to hear Round Ball Rock again and to have that nostalgia of our childhood. But sometimes you wonder, it's been 23 years. I remember this nostalgically, but is it going to be as good as it was, as I remember it being? Can it live up to the nostalgia? And the NBA on NBC through 2 weeks is one of those rare things in life that almost 25 years later, something I remember with a lot of nostalgia in my heart actually lives up to it or is better than this. The NBA on NBC kicks the absolute dust off of any NBA broadcast on ABC, ESPN. The picture is better. The drama and theater, the production value, the score bug, the announcer, it's all better. And it all just reminds me of why we loved the product on NBC back in the early to mid-90s all the way through 2001 or 2002. And a big part of that were like the intro package I just played you for Packers on Halloween night or the Packers and Panthers NFC Championship game. Before every game on the NBA on NBC, they did one of these, a 90-second intro that kind of told you a story about the Bucks and the Knicks or whatever the matchup was that day, the history of the two teams, or maybe they have bad blood or there's a rivalry, and you got old footage of the two teams from back in the day, and then it all leads into the NBA on NBC, the Lasers and Round Ball Rock. This was the Bob Costas narrated intro package for Bucks and Knicks on Tuesday, and I was like a 10-year-old Tuesday night watching this whole thing.
A half-century ago, the Knicks and Bucks were 2 of the powerhouse franchises in the NBA. The Knicks of Frazier, Reed and company won the title twice in the early 70s.
The New York Knicks have won this basketball game.
The Bucks of Kareem and Oscar were champs in 71.
The Milwaukee Bucks are champions of the world!
4 years ago, Milwaukee ended its 50-year title drought, capped by a trophy-clinching 50-point performance from Giannis.
That's the stuff of legend.
Last season, New York was knocking on the door, but fell short in the conference finals.
This is a bludgeoning here in Game 6.
So their wait continues. Now a new season is underway. Fresh start, same goal. It's the Knicks and the Bucks, the NBA on NBC. Next.
It's so good. And then this. It just gets you so jacked up for the game.
This is the NBA on NBC. Tonight, the New York Knicks visit the Milwaukee Bucks. It's Coast to Coast Tuesday, presented by Kia.
We're going to build Kia for that. It just makes you feel like a game in October is a big game. That's what those intros used to do. It's a long season. It's an 82-game marathon. That game was, today's Halloween, so that was Tuesday. It's October 28th. It's the 4th game of the year. You could have easily done a sleepy intro. Hey, it's Bucks and Knicks, and we got a long way to go. But that intro, that made me feel like this is a playoff game. It made you feel like not an NBA Finals game, but it just made me feel like the stakes were higher. And that's what that production does to it, and that's what ABC and ESPN kind of lost over the years when they had the NBA coverage. And they still have some, but it just feels like they lost their way with that, and NBC was so good at that back in the day, telling a story. And that's what gets you hyped up for the games. I don't need Stephen A. Smith screaming at me like a boiling tea kettle for 15 minutes before a game. Give me that. Give me Bob Costas narrating a little history, a little rivalry, a little set the stage, and then give me just good basketball production value and talk about the basketball, not fake trade rumors, not where is Giannis going and this and that. Just give us the basketball. That's all we want, and that's what NBC is giving us. But that intro on Tuesday, I was just like a kid in a candy store, just an ear-to-ear grin watching that. And then the Bucks went out there, and it was a good game. They were down 12 at halftime, led by 1 at the end of the first quarter. Terrible defensive second quarter on Tuesday. And I mean awful. Allowed 45 second quarter points. 45 second quarter points. And they were down 71-59 at half. Everything looked a step slower or a rotation slow in that second quarter. And you kind of felt like, all right, this is a Knicks team like the Cavs. Like we talked about Monday, those are the two teams right now. A lot can change, and maybe things are changing already after that win Tuesday and last night's win against the Warriors as you perceive teams in the Eastern Conference. But at that time, this early in the year, the Knicks and Cavs are expected to be the top two teams in the East. So you're down 12 at halftime. It looks like the Knicks have found their rhythm. They're knocking down threes. The Bucks are on their heels. And then they come out in the second half. It was like the Packers in the second half against the Steelers. Everything's better. The defense is crisper. The rotations are better. They're challenging everything. They allowed 45 points in the second quarter on Tuesday. They then allowed 40 points for the second half. 40 points total in the third and fourth quarters combined. And Giannis got going. He was an absolute beast. And at one point in the third quarter, I think it was, he had a block on one end and a dunk on the other end. Knicks call timeout. Bucks are in the middle of a run. And Giannis takes a look at the crowd, and he's chanting and popping his jersey, and he says, "This is my bleeping city." And then there are interpretations like the Costanza lip-reading Seinfeld episode. They said, "Sweep together, you idiots, not sleep together." I don't know that anyone knows what he said after that. Some people think he says, "I'm never bleeping leaving you," or "Shams, blah, 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 blah." But we know for a fact the first part of what he says is, "This is my bleeping city." And he's pointing at his jersey. And when you think of all the rumors all offseason, and then the last month, the rumors have revolved around, oh, Giannis wanted to go to the Knicks, or the Knicks were the only team that were in the mix. That's the only other place he wants to go. So for it to be against the Knicks on Tuesday, for Giannis to have the game that he had on national TV, and then to say, "This is my bleeping city." My favorite part of Tuesday night when he did that was that everybody on Bucks Twitter worked together. We were all rowing in the same direction. You got the video up, and everybody was tagging Shams in it. Because that was the guy who was perpetuating all the rumors since draft night in early June. And he brought it back and brought it back and brought it back. And now other people have kind of jumped on. I'm going to play you a couple clips here. One of them is Giannis after the game on Tuesday, where he had 37 points. He's averaging almost 37 points a game in the first 4 games. But Colin Cowherd had this on the day after the Bucks win that game. So they beat the Knicks 121-111. Giannis, a huge night. Ryan Rollins, a huge night. So Kevin Porter Jr. still out Tuesday, still out last night. Ryan Rollins makes the start. We're going to talk more about him as it relates to last night's game, but he had 25 points. That was a career high on Tuesday. Then he had another career high last night against the Warriors, 32 points. So you get the 10-point win on Tuesday, and the Bucks are 3-1. And because of what they did, and they did it on national TV with the NBA on NBC Spotlight, a lot of the national accounts started saying, well, this Bucks team might not be so bad. A lot of the conversation about why Giannis would want to leave revolved around the fact that you're no more Drew, no more Dame, no more Brook Lopez. It's a young team. There's a lot of question marks. Why would he want to waste the middle part of his prime or the back half of his prime with this young team where there are a lot of guys that you're not sure what they are, and we're not sure what this team is? But then you get off to a 3-1 start, and the young guys are playing well, and the conversation is starting to change, except for Colin Cowherd. The morning after, Giannis has a game that he had in the national spotlight, and they beat a team that is expected to be a 1 or a 2 seed in the East. The morning after that, Colin Cowherd jumps on the bandwagon of Giannis needs to leave.
Giannis is fascinating. He's going to be 31 here in like a week or so. And there have been trade rumors for years with Giannis. And my take is he's going to age quickly because his game is predicated on he can't shoot. He's not a shooter.
Might actually
it's going to be predicated on his athletic ability. And he's still got 3 or 4 great years. He had 37 last night. They beat the Knicks. He's unstoppable, shot like 75%. But he's had injuries, and I don't think he'll age particularly well. And Milwaukee, 3 straight first-round exits. That's in the East. They're a mile. They're a borderline playoff team in the West with Giannis. So that tells you it's Giannis and everything else. It's got, I said this for years with Mike Trout. I don't care what the market size is. I want to see great with great. Hanks, Spielberg, DiCaprio, Scorsese, Samuel L. Jackson, Tarantino. I want great on great. You're seeing it now. Dodgers, great organization, Ohtani. It feels different. Mahomes, Reed. It's not a market size thing. Kevin Garnett won an MVP in Minnesota. You remember the Celtics. And that's not to say that everybody's got to go to a big market. I love watching the Packers play. It's not a market size thing. Great on great. Milwaukee took some huge swings. Now they don't have draft capital, and they're paying Dame's salary for 5 years, or part of it. And so it's like they tried. But they're not really viable in the East. They are not viable in the East. In the West, they're probably a 7 seed with Giannis, who is unbelievable. So they've been a very good regular season team. But, last year, I think J-Mac called it, like one and done, not competitive, got blown out several times, first round. So there have been these rumors. And by the way, not all rumors are physical. Some are flirting emotionally. Giannis is flirting emotionally. There's been a lot of talk when stuff gets leaked, when somebody wants it leaked. There's been a lot of stories that I think I read one of them that there's a direct flight from Newark to Greece. And he wanted to be closer to the airport or something. I don't know. All I know is there's rumors. He's unbelievable. I would love to see him play with Ant. I would love to see him with Amen Thompson and KD. He's not going to the Lakers. They don't have enough to give up. I've said before, if I was the Warriors, I would give up Kuminga. I'd give up Jimmy Butler. I'd give up 4 first-round picks.
Flirting emotionally? What the hell are we talking about? And he was one of the voices. He hadn't said much about this topic. It had mainly been an ESPN narrative and Shams narrative. But it's just so weird that the morning after the Bucks get this big win against a title contending team in the East, and Giannis is great and Rollins is great, and it seems like this team is better than we expected. The morning after that, one of the lead sports voices in radio has that 2 minutes where he goes off about still the Bucks need to move on from Giannis need to move on from the Bucks. I'm telling you, I would roll my eyes for a lot of the last 5 or 6 years because the Giannis rumors have been happening basically since 2016, before they even won a title, before they were even a title contender that they wanted to get him out of the East. There is the feeling among Bucks fans, and there is a feeling, I think, among NBA fans that there might be a coordinated media onslaught that is targeting Giannis and trying to get Giannis out of Milwaukee. In fact, there are Bucks fans I know that take it a step further and say, not only is the NBA wanting all of its biggest media voices to talk about the fact that Giannis needs to leave, not only are they doing that, I have friends that believe the NBA is also telling officials in games to referee games differently so Giannis gets frustrated and leaves. And I got to tell you, I rolled my eyes at a lot of this. I rolled my eyes at, come on, coordinated media attack where you get all the biggest voices, the Cowherds and the Charanias and the Barkleys and the Shaqs and all those guys. You get all those guys on the same page to throw the narrative out there that that Giannis needs to move on from Milwaukee, and maybe he will. Maybe it'll inception him into wanting to leave Milwaukee. And now you've got the officials in it, like Adam Silver is sitting down with the officials the night before the Bucks play the Knicks and saying, call a bunch of fouls on all the Bucks players. Don't let Giannis get away with anything. Until he gets to a big market, he's not going to get these calls. Now, I will say, and we've talked about this, when I think of the superstar treatment that guys like LeBron get during a game when it comes to officiating, guys like MJ back in the day, it felt like you couldn't breathe on them. You couldn't touch them without a foul being called. And Giannis, because he is not really a complainer, sometimes, but not really, by NBA standards, he is not a complainer at all. He gets, every time he goes to the rim, he gets hacked, he gets slapped, he gets put in a chokehold, he gets put in the sharpshooter, and 70% of the time it doesn't get called. People piss and moan about the fact that Giannis averages like 17 or 18 free throw attempts a game. He should have 30. I mean, they foul him. It's like Micah Parsons. It's like Micah Parsons on the Packers who gets held every time he rushes the quarterback. I get that you can't call it on every play because then we'll just never, the other team won't even have players left by the end of it if you call every foul. But I know Bucks fans that think that's happening too. Not only are the biggest media voices in the NBA being told, talk about Giannis having to get out of Milwaukee, but maybe even the officiating is officiating in a certain way to get Giannis frustrated and say, oh, if you go to LA, maybe you're going to get some of these calls. You go to Chicago, you go to a bigger market, you go to a better team, maybe you're going to start to get some of these calls. I didn't believe it, but I'm starting to. I'm starting to believe it because after a win like Tuesday, a significant win against a good team, and the Bucks are 3-1, and again, it's looking like they might be a lot better than people expected. The morning after that, one of the biggest voices in sports radio goes on the air and talks about how the Bucks are trash and they're barely a playoff team. What are we doing here? Flirting emotionally? Now, after the Knicks game, somebody did bring up, a pool reporter did bring up to Giannis, not a local reporter, I don't know who this must have been, New York media, brought up to Giannis about the fact that the rumor this offseason was that maybe he wants to go to New York or he would entertain ideas of going to New York. Here's what Giannis had to say.
Yeah, it's just off of what Steph was asking you. Does that stuff become a distraction when you're like the focus of the NBA world for like a week with that report that you didn't see?
If it becomes a distraction for me, I don't have time. I'm not going to lie to you. I have 4 kids. I have a 7-month-old, 2-year-old, 4-year-old, and 5-year-old. So, brother, I don't have time to read. Even if I wanted to pay attention to stuff like that, my life don't let me. I have 4 little, gremlins that they're running around, and I have, my craft that I got to improve, and then I got to lead the team, and then I got the other things. I got my wife, I got my mother, I got my brothers, I got to go to church. Man, I ain't got time for all that. So I'm being very, very honest with you. I just love playing basketball, and I try to speak on the court. Thank you, guys.
Oh, I love him. I love him. It's the perfect response. He said, this is my bleeping city. The night that his young team was beating a contender, and 12 hours later, Cowherd's doing a diatribe about how he needs to leave Milwaukee. It might be. There might be a coordinated backroom media session happening with Adam Silver and the NBA marketing department sitting down with the biggest voices in radio. I haven't been invited yet. When you think about the biggest voices in radio and podcasting, where there is an idea of let's try to talk Giannis out of Milwaukee. Let's try to officiate him out of Milwaukee. Unbelievable. Then they come out last night. So still no Kevin Porter Jr. And no Giannis. He was a scratch. I will say at the end of the Tuesday game, he banged knees with somebody. And in the final minute, he was kind of limping around, and I just played it off. He was in the prayer circle afterwards, and it didn't seem like he was getting any trainer attention. But I did see that at the end of the Tuesday game. So a last-minute scratch last night was Giannis with knee soreness. And maybe there's a little load management. I mean, look, this team knows it's October. If they're going to go anywhere, you need Giannis healthy, and while you'd love to see him play 82 games, that's just not the NBA world we live in anymore. They're going to play 65, 70 games. The superstars, you've got to have them try to be reasonably healthy and energetic at the end of the year, too. And maybe it is more important for him to play more games this year with the young team, where you're not necessarily going to coast into a 2 or a 3 or a 4 seed, but I think there was some knee soreness. I think this was a little load management as well. Get him rest for a night after the effort he had to put forth on Tuesday and in the first 4 games of the year, where he's averaging 37, 17, and 8 assists a game and shooting 70%. So he was a scratch before the game. Now, I'm thinking before, when I read that on Twitter at 6:30, you've got the Warriors in town. Warriors are off to a 4-1 start. This is not the Warrior team of 10 years ago of prime Klay Thompson and Steph Curry and Draymond Green, where they won whatever it was, 4 titles in 5 years or 4 titles in 6 years. But they are still a really good team. It is still Steph Curry. It is still aging Draymond Green. It's Jimmy Butler, who we know has given the Bucks and their fans nightmares, myself included. He was sent there last year at the trade deadline. He's there for a second year this year. Al Horford, who has tormented the Bucks, he's coming off the bench there now. This is not the freight train Warriors of 10 or even 5 or 6 years ago. This is a different team, but still a good team. That was 4-1 heading into last night. You're thinking, all right, Warriors are playing all their guys. We're down Porter Jr. We're down Giannis. No chance we win this. And I'll be damned if they don't go out there and play one of the best games I've seen them play in like the last 2 years. All 5 starters in double figures. Ryan Rollins, after 25 points on Tuesday, 32 points last night, and this does not look like a mirage to me. I've watched a lot of NBA. I've watched a lot of basketball in my life. I watched a lot of NBA. Ryan Rollins on Tuesday and Thursday, he is passing the eye test for me because you can kind of tell when a role player is playing above their skis for a couple of weeks or for a couple of games, but they're probably going to come back down to earth. There's something about the way that Ryan Rollins is composing himself on the court. He looks very under control. He looks very confident in his shot, in his decisions, attacking the rim, setting up defenses, finding the open shooter, finding the open cutter. He just looks like the real deal to me right now. Is he going to average 30 points a game this year? No, he is not. But if he is now your starting point guard, I kind of feel for Kevin Porter Jr. because coming into the year, he was the clear-cut starter and Rollins was the backup point guard. Kevin Porter Jr. now has been down since the first quarter opening night, and with the last 2 games Rollins has had, if Rollins continues to roll like this, I don't know how you put him back on the bench because he looks like not only a good role player, he looks like he could be a budding star right now for the Bucks in the last couple of games. Again, he has to do it over a longer sample size, but it's hard for me to conceive of if Kevin Porter Jr. is healthy on Saturday, do you put him right back in the starting 5? How do you bench Ryan Rollins at this point? So he is not, I don't think, going to average 25 points a game or 30 points a game. But if this is Ryan Rollins, if what we're seeing on Tuesday and Thursday is what we're going to get from Ryan Rollins, if he averages 18 points a game, if he averages 15 to 18 points a game, 4 or 5 or 6 assists per game, and he is a good defender too. He leads the league in deflecting balls. He leads the league in that. He had, I think, 4 steals on Tuesday. Did not have a steal last night, but was disruptive defensively. He's got good size for a guard, so he's a good two-way player. He gives you offense, but he also gives you defense. If this is who he is going to become at 23 years old, I think it changes the calculus of what this Bucks team is capable of. And we talked about heading into the year. One of the fun things about this team is that this is the first time in a long time we've had a lot of good young talent around Giannis, but that also means we don't know what they are. Some of these guys may surprise you in a good way, some may surprise you in a bad way, but we haven't had a roster like this since probably when Giannis and Middleton were pups in 2014 and 2015, where you kind of saw some signs, but we weren't entirely sure what they were going to become. That's a fun part of having a young roster and seeing all of a sudden Ryan Rollins get more confident and level up every night, it feels like, or every other week, it feels like right now, with the way that he plays on the floor. That was not a dynamic on the team in the last 2 years or the team at the end of the Drew Holiday era of the squad. Now, don't get me wrong. They won a ton of games with Drew, and they did win a bunch of games with Dame too. Not a lot of playoff games. But there's this element now of we have a lot of young guys, and we're not entirely sure what they are, and that means you could be a lot better than you were expecting to be. It does mean you could maybe be a lot worse, but right now it looks like we're on the better side of things. But if this is Ryan Rollins at 23 years old, this changes things for the Bucks this year and what their ceiling could be. And how smart does John Horst look in the offseason? So Ryan Rollins was kicking around as an undrafted rookie in Golden State. They traded him to Washington. Then Washington, I think, either traded him to the Bucks or they cut him and the Bucks picked him up. Rollins was a standout in Oshkosh in 2023 for the Herd, but you never know. A lot of guys put up big numbers in the G League, and then you call them up to the NBA level, and it doesn't look like they could carry water. He was great in the G League. He makes the roster last year as a backup guard, and then remember at the beginning part of the year, I think Dame was hurt for a couple of games or whatever, and they gave him some run, and he looked pretty good. And then in an NBA Cup qualifying game last year in either November or December, he went in for a layup and he jammed his shoulder. He got knocked down and jammed his shoulder. And I think he dislocated his shoulder and they popped it back in place. He missed a couple of weeks. And then remember, he had to wear that sling around his shoulder the rest of the year. And he just wasn't the same player. It looked like he was on the rise and then that injury undermined him. And then we didn't really know what they were going to do with him. So they signed him to a 3-year, $12 million deal in the offseason. That's it. And that's a lot of money for Ryan Rollins. He has not made that kind of money in his career yet. But they signed him to a 3-year, $12 million deal, and now he looks more comfortable, he looks healthy, and he's looking like he's going to be the diamond in the rough maybe on this team in the last 2 games at least. But yeah, he was showing signs last year before that big shoulder injury, and then it just felt like he couldn't get back on track after that. AJ Green had a big 3 late yesterday. He had 10 points. Kyle Kuzma. I don't hate the way Kyle Kuzma is playing. He started last night instead of coming off of the bench because of the Giannis injury. Had 10 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 of 10 shooting. His defense against Karl Anthony Towns on Tuesday and his defense last night were tremendous. Now, he still sometimes on offense looks like he doesn't even know what the sport is. I mean, there are times Kyle Kuzma has the basketball and it looks like he's dribbling it for the first time. But he is athletic, and he's 6'8", and he's got length. And if he can just focus on being an elite defender, which he has been the last 2 nights, that's another added bonus coming off of the bench as he is adapting to that role. Again, starting last night because of the injury, but his defense has been impressive. Miles Turner had his best game as a Buck last night, 17 points, 7 boards. Knocked down 3 threes, a big one in the fourth quarter. Had 3 assists as well. Gary Trent had 13. Cole Anthony came back, 16 points. He fouled out in 21 minutes, but 16 points off the bench. Bobby had a nice run in the second quarter. Torian Prince had 10. Just a balanced attack. And this young team right now, it feels like they've got great chemistry. I also don't think Thanasis being on the roster, or being back on the roster, I think that helps there too. Thanasis, while he doesn't help you maybe a ton on the floor, him not being on the team last year because of the Achilles injury, I think that hurt them in the locker room. I think that hurt them on the sideline, and him being back is helping bind this young team together now, and it obviously doesn't hurt if you can make Giannis happy and you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. But right now, I get it, we're 5 games in, they're 4-1, but right now, this feels like a good young team with a lot of upside that has good chemistry going as they win 120-110 over a fully loaded Golden State team last night. Now the Bucks have the Kings at Fiserv Forum, 4 o'clock tip time on Saturday. Let's real quick talk about the World Series. That 18-inning marathon, holy moly. I couldn't believe that in Game 3. It was a 5-4 Blue Jay lead. Then Ohtani hits his second home run of the night. The guy is unbelievable. You go to extras, and now with no ghost runner in the playoffs and extras, which I get. As I wrote in the blog, I think on Tuesday morning, you cannot have ghost runners in the playoffs. You cannot have ghost runners determining playoff games or World Series games. You have to go back to the original way they did it. But Monday night in Game 3 was a good example of why they do what they do in the regular season. Because it's one thing to be up for 7 hours and watch 18 innings of baseball in a World Series game. That type of stuff was happening on a Wednesday in June a lot in the pre-Ghost Runner era. So if you don't love the Ghost Runner, if you're more of a traditionalist at heart, I think that's a good example of something we want to avoid in May, in June, in July, in August. And then you go back to the regular way you did extra innings once they get to the playoffs. That was a 6-hour and 40-minute marathon, and it had it all. You had guys getting thrown out at home plate. You had pitchers getting out of a bases-loaded jam in a 3-2 count. You had Will Smith of the Dodgers in the 14th think he hit a walk-off home run. He flipped his bat. It was caught on the warning track. There were so many classic moments in that game in Game 3. That will go down, as I wrote in the blog, not just in terms of length, which I think is the second longest World Series game of all time in terms of length. Game 3 in 2018, also at Dodger Stadium with the Red Sox. That went 18 innings, and that was 7 hours and 20 minutes. Now, that's pre-pitch clock, baby. So we had an 18-inning game on Monday, 18-inning game in 2018. The 18-inning game in 2018 lasted 7 hours and 20 minutes, and the one in 2025 with the pitch clock lasted 6 hours and 40 minutes. That's the pitch clock difference. So the second longest game in terms of length in World Series history. And then Freddie Freeman hits the walk-off in the 18th inning. Dodgers take that game 6-5. And I'm thinking, how do the Blue Jays recover from this? If the Brewers would have lost a World Series game like that, if I would have stayed up 7 hours to watch a Brewer World Series game and they lost like that, I may never recover. They may say 10 years down the road, what's wrong with John? Oh, Game 3, 2025. He never bounced back. He never recovered emotionally. So I don't know how Blue Jays fans and that team got themselves sorted out to get back on the field for Game 4 and then not only get back on the field, but win Game 4 and win Game 5. I thought after the Blue Jays lost that game on Monday and they're down 2-1 in the series and you lose an 18-inning heartbreaker, I thought the series is over. There's no way they can recover from that when you're that close and you blow it late and then you play basically a second full game and you lose that. There's no way you bounce back. But they did. It's a credit to the resolve of that Blue Jay team. They go out there in Game 4 and get a win. What was the final in Game 4? 6-2. Shane Bieber was great. They got Ohtani. Ohtani took the loss. And then Trey Savage in Game 5, 22-year-old rookie for the Blue Jays, only made 3 starts in the regular season. 3. And he's been starting regularly in the playoffs. He's their version of Mizorowski. I mean, not the same stuff and not the same velocity, but that's their top young pitching prospect. He goes out there in a tie World Series, 2 games apiece. A 22-year-old rookie making his 7th start in his career on the road at Dodger Stadium, and he shoves 7 innings of 1-run ball, 12 strikeouts, no walks. Remarkable performance from a guy with that limited amount of experience in that age. That maybe worked to his advantage. I mean, maybe the fact that he's 22 years old and he doesn't know any better, maybe that worked to his advantage in that game. Blue Jays win that game 6-1. So you have your heart, your beating heart is ripped out of your chest on Monday night / Tuesday morning, and you're down 2-1 in the series. You lose an instant classic, a game that will go down as one of the greatest World Series games ever played. You lose that. And then you come back and win 6-2 the next day or the same day, and then you win 6-1 on Wednesday, and all of a sudden the Blue Jays are 1 win away from eliminating the Dodgers and getting their first World Series championship since 1993 when Paul Molitor won 1 with the Blue Jays in 93. Ugh. See, I don't like I think we talked about that on the Monday podcast. I don't like the Blue Jays either, but it is anybody but the Dodgers right now. That is my philosophy. Anybody but the Dodgers. Game 6 tonight in Toronto. I cannot imagine what the atmosphere is going to be like, what it is right now, and what it's going to be like tonight in the Rogers Center when they are a win away from a title. 7 o'clock first pitch, Kevin Gausman on the hill for the Blue Jays, and of course, Yamamoto going for the Dodgers. He has 2 complete game victories in his last 2 starts. So if you're a Dodger fan, that's who you want. They've got a lot of options, but that's the guy you want in that moment. And he was warming up, by the way. He pitched and won on what day was it? What game was it? He won in Game 2. So he had only been off for 2 days because there was a travel day in there. He was warming up in the 18th inning. I mean, that's how deep they were into their bullpens, where starting pitchers who pitched a day ago were warming up. But if you're a Dodger fan, based on the recent playoff history, that's who you want on the mound tonight. Blue Jays trying to seal it up. Even though I want the Blue Jays to win this game, there is a part of me that loves a Game 7. And the thought of a Game 7 on a Saturday night with a fallback weekend, I kind of play 18 then. I don't mind playing 18 tonight or tomorrow. Playing 18 on Monday is a little rough. There is a part of me that wants to see a Game 7, just a little bit. But that is tonight, 7 o'clock first pitch in Toronto. All right, let's make some picks.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
Never tell me the odds.
If someone gives you 10,000 to 1 on anything, you take it.
See, that's a cool G, Daddy-O. Now you gotta let it ride.
I forgot to play you this. This popped into my head when we were on the air Tuesday morning after that 18-inning marathon. I thought of Kramer, where I love baseball and I love the World Series, but enough is enough already.
If it's enough already, and I just want to get some sleep.
That's kind of how I felt by the end of that game. You faked it.
What?
Yeah.
You faked it? Why would you do that?
If it's enough already, and I just want to get some sleep.
Love it. All right, let's roll through these. We went 2-2 last week. We are 14-13 on the year against the spread, and we're looking pretty good on some of our futures. So college football, I've got Ohio State -18 at home against Penn State. That we thought was going to be this great battle late in the year, but Ohio State fell apart, or Penn State fell apart. They've lost 4 in a row. They fired James Franklin. That Ohio State team, I think I'm going to put a bet on them. They are the far and away favorite right now to win the national championship at +310. I think the next highest is maybe Indiana at +700. That's how big of a favorite OSU is. And then remember, when the playoffs started last year, I think Ohio State was +130 or 140 when the playoffs started last year, and I put a bet on them to win the title, and they did. I'm thinking about it. If they're healthy, I just think they're a shoulder above everybody. But I will take Ohio State at home -18. I'm taking Nebraska as well, +4.5 at home against number 23 USC. USC's been one of those teams bouncing in and out of the bottom half of the top 25, and Nebraska has too. Nebraska goes into the game with a game better record. I think USC is 5-3, Nebraska 6-2. I do like what Matt Rule is doing in Nebraska, and I just think them catching points at home, they're going to be fired up. You've got a West Coast team traveling to Nebraska, and they catch 4.5 points at home. I will take Nebraska +4.5. I'm taking the Lions at home -9.5 against the Vikings. J.J. McCarthy makes his return for the Vikings this weekend. I think it was a soft benching, that ankle sprain. Then Carson Wentz got hurt, but they didn't feel comfortable putting McCarthy back in yet. But I do think, maybe J.J. McCarthy did sprain his ankle, but it felt like that was the longest ankle sprain of all time. He was out for 5 weeks. That felt like, given the way the first couple of weeks had gone for him outside of opening night against Chicago in the second half, that felt like it was a soft benching by Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings front office. Lions are at home. When you look around the NFC, it feels like what? The Eagles, Packers, and Lions are the three teams right now, and maybe you throw the Rams in there if Stafford is healthy and they're healthy toward the end of the year. That might not be how it ends up, but I think that's where we feel we are with the top 3 or 4 teams right now. Lions at home, McCarthy coming back to make the start. I think the Lions beat them up. Lions minus 9.5 at home. I am taking the Patriots minus 5.5 at home against the Falcons. Drake May playing some of the best quarterback in the NFL right now. And the Falcons just got smushed at home to the Dolphins, 34-10. Now, maybe they bounce back and play better on the road, but I think that Patriot defense keeps them in check. I don't even know if it's going to be Penix or Cousins starting for the Falcons. I don't care. I'm taking the Patriots minus 5.5. And Monday Night Football, I am taking Cowboys Cardinals over 53. I've been betting almost every Cowboy over. They hit almost all of the time. I am taking the over there. I think Kyler Murray comes back for the Cardinals. He's played well in Dallas in his career. That Cowboy defense, as we know, is a sieve, but I think the Cowboys put up points on that Cardinal defense as well. I'll take the over on 53 on Monday Night Football. Patriots minus 5.5, Lions minus 9.5, Ohio State minus 18, Nebraska plus 4.5, Cowboys Cardinals over 53. That'll do it for us here on your Friday morning. Hopefully coming back with a Victory Monday. Hope all the kiddos out there or your kids have a good time on Halloween trick-or-treating today. Make sure as a parent you go through all the candy and make sure there are no razor blades in there. We were always told to watch out for razor blades and handguns that were going to be attached to our candy when we were kids. It never happened once. I think it was all a ploy so parents would be forced to look through our candy and steal what they want. You want to talk about a coordinated media attack on Giannis? I think that was a coordinated attack on Halloween candy and kids. Make sure you enjoy Halloween if you've got that going on or any parties this weekend. We'll chat with you Monday morning. Have a happy, safe weekend.